Hey, thank you for tuning in to today's video. I want to share with you 6 tips for being a better professional musician. Now, I've lived in Nashville for almost 7 years at this point, and I've learned a lot of things along the way. I have a lot of stories to tell, mistakes that I've made, great experiences, new levels that I've reached along the way, and met tons of wonderful and fantastic people. And I probably have a gazillion other things I could talk about, but I wanted to condense this video down to the 6 most important things I would say I've found for being a professional musician. I want to get something out of the way first. I did not go on Google or ChatGPT to find this list of things that I'm going to talk about. These are just lived experiences that I've had and things that mentors have taught me over the years organically. Before we jump into the list, I also wanted to say it is a prerequisite that if you're going to be a professional musician, your skill, your musicianship is expected of you ahead of time. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You need to be able to show up prepared and show up being able to play whatever it is that you're assigned. All right, so number 1, you need to have professional gear. It doesn't need to be the nicest gear in the world, but it needs to be consistent, reliable, and it needs to sound appropriate for whatever gigging situation that you're walking into. You need to have the gear that you will need for that gig. You don't want to sound like you're playing something that sounds totally off from what is expected from you. As a guitar player, I could send you some recommendations for things that I found to be affordable and reliable. One of those pieces of gear I will talk about here in a second. Secondly, in relation to that, you need to have backups of your most crucial gear. This is something that I have started implementing within the last year. So for example, I run a Fractal FM3. I've made a video kind of talking all about that piece of gear. You can check that out here. But that is my amplifier and effects all in one. So I never ask for a backlined amp when I'm playing fly dates or gigs where, I don't need to bring anything except my guitar and pedal board. So that being said, I need to have something to back me up in case something goes down. So I use the More GE200. This is a multi-effects pedal board basically and amplifier unit in one. It's very small. It's not the best sounding unit, but if I'm in a pinch, it can work. And I've dialed in some sounds that could get me through a gig basically. And if you'd like to see a video of me demoing that product, I would love to do that because I think it is a very important tool to have. And again, it doesn't have to be the best sounding piece of gear in the world. It just needs to be there in case of an emergency. All right, my second tip is to find people that are doing what you want to do and connect with them. This, for me in Nashville, or I guess LA and New York as well, looks like going to shows, meeting people, swapping contacts, and then asking to meet them for coffee or for lunch. This is something that has been so helpful to me living in Nashville. Basically, I've met most of the people that I know doing this, and it's a little intimidating at first, I will be honest, to go into a new situation and to just try to meet strangers and talk to them. But I find that most people are generally nice and want to help you out. It's also good to just have a friend come with you if it makes you nervous being out in crowds and talking to new people. I'm certainly a very introverted person, so this was a bit of a challenge for me to get over, but I have no regrets from doing this. And then after that, you want to find people that are outside of your circle maybe and reach out to them as well. This could be through social media, that I've done this a lot. I've found people on Instagram that were doing what I wanted to do, and I reached out to them. Not in like a, hey man, like I need you to give me gigs type of way, but hey, I love what you're doing and I really want to learn how you did that and how you got to the point where you are so that I could maybe eventually be able to do what you're doing. Adding on to that, don't approach people as networking opportunities. View them as relationships because that's ultimately what this industry is. And I mean, a lot of life is that way. It's just about building relationships. It's about who you know. It's not about what they can offer you. If you go into it with this attitude of, hey, I'm just here to network and I want to give you my number so you can call me for stuff, people will pick up on that very quickly. And you might not word it that way verbatim, but it's very obvious like what you're trying to do. And people don't like that, and you won't get very far if you go into this industry with that kind of attitude. Tip number 3 is to be early. So if you have a gig at 6 o'clock and sound check is at 5, you need to be there plenty of time before 5 o'clock to be set up and ready to go. Because sound check, at least from my perspective and a lot of people's perspective that are professional musicians, is is, hey, that's the time we got to start playing. We got to start checking our monitors. We got to start checking the front of house. So everything needs to be set up and ready to go at that point. There doesn't need to be any slacking or lagging around getting to your gig. And I can't even tell you how many rehearsals that I've showed up to like 30 minutes early, and I'm set up and ready to go, and I'm the first person there, and the next person doesn't show up till 5 after. And I know that this may seem tedious, and this may seem like, hey, like, why do I need to get here so early if no one's showing up till after 4? Well, first of all, you don't know that if you're walking into a new gigging situation. And secondly, it just shows how much more professional you are, and your merit will show off over time. And adding on to that tip as well, it's something I could have made a whole separate tip about, but you just need to be prepared when you show up to rehearsals. You don't want to be showing up and constantly having to reference, hey, how does that song go again? No, you need to know the songs very well ahead of time. And it's fine to reference it if you're trying to remember how the intro goes or something like that, but you don't need to be sitting there in rehearsal learning a song that you've had for a week and a half. You need to have that ready ahead of time. Again, other people might not do this all the time, but it just shows again to your merit as to how good you are at your job, and it really makes you stand out, I would say. All right, my fourth tip is to be flexible. So this can be a very tumultuous industry to work in. You can have transportation change, you can have set list change, lodging change, all on a dime, and there's no way to predict it a lot of times. And sometimes you just got to roll with it. And if you're already committed to the gig, it doesn't look good if you back out last minute because of something like that, if it's not like a major life-changing alteration to the gig. So be flexible, be ready to work in whatever situation. And I would add on to that, know what you're signing up for ahead of time. Get all the details ahead of time, so that way if something does change, you're kind of prepared for whatever that looks like. My fifth tip I would say is to have a great attitude. This can be a very taxing job to work, and oftentimes it is underpaid working in music. You just got to have a great attitude no matter what situation you're in. You should, again, kind of like referencing what I said in my last point, you should know what you're signing up for ahead of time, and don't set your expectations too high, but also just have a great attitude on whatever gig that you're on and whatever opportunity that you commit to, because you're committing your time to it, and you want to be an easy person to be around, and you want people to hire you again, whether it's for that gig or for other gigs. People are always watching you, so you want to have a great attitude even when things are really challenging, when you feel like, hey man, like this is just not paying very well, or hey, I'm not stoked about getting in this van for 14 hours to drive through the night, which I've done that multiple times. I have to have a great attitude because I signed up for this and I knew ahead of time what I was getting myself into. So have a great attitude. And lastly, number 6, know your worth. This is something that I kind of really started to kind of take a grasp of in 2022. I think that a lot of times I was taking work that was not what I was valued for. And that's not to sound arrogant, but I've been working in music for 7 years now. I think the last 4 have been professionally. And I've played a lot of gigs and I've gotten to do some really, really awesome and cool things. But it gets to a certain point over time when you're worth more than you were when you first started. And you are a business, you have to treat yourself like a business. So know your worth. No one's gonna get mad if you turn down a gig because it doesn't pay well. Of course, in most situations, you should not let anyone know that's why you turned down the gig. Someone says, hey, I want you to play this gig, it pays X amount of money and it's not what you're looking for, or you don't feel like it's worth your time, just say, hey, I'm booked, or hey, I'm sorry, I will have to pass at this opportunity for now, or something along those lines, but never say, hey, like, this doesn't pay enough, like, I can't do that, I'm sorry. Because you don't want to offend people, even if their offer offends you. You don't want to burn any bridges, because no matter what town you're working in, it's still a small town in regards to the relationships that you have, because that person knows somebody that you know that knows somebody that you know, and word gets around quickly, so you don't want to come off as being an asshole, basically. I always like to look at the 3 things that could make a gig great and try to get at least 2 out of 3 of them. This has been kind of circulating in Nashville since I first moved here, or something that I heard once I first moved here. But basically, you're looking for good pay, good music, or a good hang, and you want to get at least 2 out of those 3. I found that now, though, I cannot compromise on the hang. There's no gigging situation I think that I could be in where I would go for the money and the music long term. If I'm going to be out with someone for a long period of time, I want the hang. The hang has got to be there. I could settle for not so good music, maybe a little bit of a pay cut if the hang is there and it's a good group of people. because again, it kind of ties back to what I said earlier. This is all about relationships. It's all about growing together with other people. It's a people business ultimately. You don't want to try to do this by yourself. You don't want to feel like you're trapped and alone on the road. So I found that getting a good hang is definitely the most important thing for me on gigs, but it could be different for other people. You know, this is just some advice. These are just my ideas and things that I've learned over the years, but everyone's experience is subjective, and you can take from this video whatever you find to be helpful and discard what you don't find to be helpful. Thank you for watching this video, and be sure to like and subscribe and check out the rest of my videos that I've posted. I've been trying to post a new video every week. The last 2 videos were related to guitar tone. This is more of a life advice video, but I want to continue to grow this channel and to explore different avenues. If you have anything that you would like to see me share, whether it's life advice, whether it's more guitar tone videos, whether it's instructional videos on how to play certain things, or just videos of me playing, just let me know what you'd like to hear. Thank you. Bye.